Hey everyone. So I hurt my finger. Sorry, this is this finger. I burned it pretty good.
You gave the middle finger to the wrong person?
I'm just saying, no. I was building a puppet.
Read between the lines.
I mean, that's not like an act. You know, that's not like a saying. I was actually really building a physical puppet.
Did the puppet attack you? Like, I don't understand.
It's a killer puppets.
It's this big orange space penguin. If you look at my Instagram feed, you'll see it.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm using hot glue, which is really one of my favorite substances to use. But you can never, ever use it without gloves on, or else you will totally screw yourself. So, and there's nothing more painful than a hot glue burn. It's like one of the worst burns. It'll stay with you for days.
I'll try and stay away from that.
Yeah, so if you're building puppets, which I know a lot of you are, that's why you're coming on the show right now to watch us, to talk about puppet building. You are building puppets. You know, that's what you do. So I know you guys just want to talk about. I just want to mention where I am today. I had a meeting in Atlantic City, and I'm using the advantage to that to actually stay here tonight to see friends of mine, one of my favorite bands, the Hooters.
Oh, the Hooters, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
the Hooters.
The Hooters are playing tonight. Yes, the Hooters are playing tonight in Ocean City, New Jersey. On the
I love the restaurants.
Yes, they predate the restaurants.
I know they do.
And a Hooter, you know, for those of you who are curious, is not what you think it is from a restaurant. It's actually it's a melodica, which is also like a wind piano kind of that you blow into. That's actually technically a Hooter, which is the sound of the Hooters. If you think
I thought it was like a kazoo.
No, it's like you know, if you watch you know, right now the best example would be the Colbert show, where, you know, he has this guy come out.
Oh yeah, you know what? That guy's annoying with that.
I know you don't like him, but
So is Colbert.
Oh, no, he's not. John Batista. They're both awesome.
I have seen him play that live. I have.
Not getting into that, but he plays one of those. I have one. I should have brought it with me to show you. But it's if you think of the song, it basically has the sound of like an accordion almost. Because it is reeds. It's all it is reeds inside of it. You blow into it, and it's the same concept as an accordion. We just push air through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's if you think of the song "And We Dance," which is like one of the more popular Hooter songs. It's all throughout that song. You can hear that sound. Right. And the beginning part. So that's it. Anyway, I'm going to see the Hooters at the
last time I heard that was at Live Aid, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, the Hooters. There's still Eric Bazillion's a wonderful person. He's still
we should be scolded, Russ, because we missed the anniversary of Live Aid. We'll have to wait till next July 13th. But
yeah, right. That just happened. That's right. I was the only place in the world that you couldn't see Live Aid that day. I was on a plane coming back from Europe. Like just before, you know, you could see things on planes.
Were you on the Concorde sitting next to Phil Collins?
I passed Phil Collins in the air because he was, you know, I think did he start in England or start in Philly?
He started in England, went to Philly.
Okay, so I was going the same direction as him. Yeah, so we probably were. I think he was probably in a slightly faster plane. I think I was flying.
He was in the Concorde. He was in the Concorde.
Yeah, right. He was in the Concorde. That's right. I was flying Icelandic Air, which is like a bus with wings, and we had to stop in Reykjavik to show I think the pilot wanted to show the.
I'm very familiar with Icelandic Air. They used to stay in my hotel all the time.
Yeah, they're the cheapest way to get to Europe back then, and you know,
flying a stork.
You basically stop in Reykjavik so the pilot can show his friends the plane, you know, and then you move on. But it's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Russ wants to bring up something before we get started here. For all the people, we do start with non-hockey stuff. If you don't like it, sorry.
Yeah, well, summer, you know, brings out the movie season, and I had gotten an email maybe about a week ago, and I didn't have a chance to put it up or respond, but it was from Redbox, you know, the people who do movie renting. They have those big red boxes, or they do it online, and they came out with a list of their top 10 baseball movies, and that's something where it's always in good debate. And they did it from their experts. They said, now I don't know if that means people on staff, people who rent, all of it, none of it. I don't know.
If it's on staff, they should be fired.
But there were 1,000 of them, so they can't be all on staff, right? But so the list that they came up with was, and we'll talk about it after, but it's number 1, Field of Dreams, number 2, League of Their Own, 3 was The Sandlot, 4 was Major League, 5, Angels in the Outfield, 6, Bad News Bears, 7, The Natural, 8, Bull Durham, 9, Rookie of the Year, and 10, Moneyball. And I said the list isn't bad.
No, I think it's bad.
But the thing is, the 2 of them that I immediately would lop off would be Angels in the Outfield and Rookie of the Year. Like, those movies, I don't know if they were really just querying like 10-year-olds, You know, I just don't know who liked those movies like that.
In the outfield, like for having kids who in that, you know, they were. Angels Outfield came before my kids were born, I think. It was like the 1990s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I never get them confused, but yeah, but kids do love that movie. Like I'm
sure, and so.
Well, was the oh shoot, was the woman the movie about the women?
Yeah, League of Their Own.
League of Their Own was 2.
That was. I'm sorry, I missed that. Yes, sir.
That's okay.
That should be 2.
So you know, and we all have ones that we'll think are missing. The 2 that I thought were missing were Bang the Drum Slowly, and that's old. I was 10 years old when that was made. It was Robert De Niro, but it's a great movie.
Yes.
The second one was 8 Men Out. Like, we've all seen 8 Men Out, and it's just fantastic about the 1919 Black Sox scandal. Now, the funny thing about it was neither of those movies are available on Redbox. So my retort is they need to consult me so they can make movies like this available because they're just missing. But I figured I'd ask Mike what he thinks is missing, and Eck, you too.
Yeah, go ahead. You first, Mike.
Well, I mean, 8 Men Out is glaring because I mean it's one of my favorite baseball movies. I think, you know, The Natural needs to be much higher on the list than you know. I think The Natural was a first or second. I love Field
Number 1 for me. I admit.
Yeah. I have an emotional tie to The Natural because it was filmed in Buffalo at the old rock pile. And I know of some people who were extras in the movie, and you know, there's a lot of scenes that were, if you go around Buffalo, you can still see the buildings that they were filmed at. So I mean,
that's in the Hall of Fame, right? It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Now, honestly, and this was not a great movie, but better than. And I'm assuming that the Angels in the Outfield they're talking about is the Danny Glover movie, which I thought was horrific, and it's a remake of an old movie. You know, not The Babe with John Goodman, that was horrendous. But and The Sandlot is cute. Rookie of the Year is an abysmal movie. It's so bad. I actually think that one that was sort of cute was a movie called Little Big League, where a kid
I remember that one.
Inherits the Minnesota Twins from his grandfather who passes away, and you know he tries to be. I think he becomes the manager of the team. You know, it's not realistic, but it was cute. But some of those movies that has some redeeming value. Rookie of the Year, you know, some kid breaks his arm, all of a sudden he can throw 115 miles an hour. I mean, give me a friggin' break.
What about you, Eck? Any of yours?
You know, there's a couple that are really old. You know, there are some good baseball movies. I was looking through my list here of. I recently made a list of sports movies. I brought it up. It's really funny.
Okay.
I mean, Pride of the Yankees. I mean, but it's dated. Yeah. Old. I mean,
Rookie was a good movie by Disney, but it's not top 10.
I think Moneyball should be higher.
Yeah, it should be higher. I agree.
You don't think you don't agree, Mike?
Yeah, no, I agree. And The Rookie with Dennis Quaid.
Well, that's why I just said that. Yeah,
that was a pretty good movie. I'll agree on that one.
Yeah. Someone had told me about that movie I watched recently, 61. You guys ever see that movie?
Yeah, but it's not a theatrical release. It's an HBO movie, so that's
but it was really well done. I mean,
I have to say, as much as this movie is well loved, I think Bull Durham is extremely overrated.
Yeah, I do want to say something about 61. I think the movie was well done. I think it had too much Billy Crystal influence. I think that was the problem with that movie.
Yes. And 40, and you don't see that 42 is on this. The movie about
42 was excellent. Like 42 could be the next movie on the list.
Yeah. 42 is not on there, and I read something a day or so ago that there are people, there are people related to players who were in the game who that said that, you know, apparently in the movie they had him hurling racial epithets at Jackie Robinson, and they were like, no, my father didn't do that. There was that kind of
you know what, it did happen. And I'll tell you what, my mother saw Jackie Robinson at Ebbets Field, and I watched the movie with my parents, and she thought it was great. Like, it really brought her back.
Yeah.
Well, you know a movie that I like too that not many people have seen, I don't even think either. I'm trying to remember this. It's when was this? Jeez. It was based on something that happened in like 1957.
What was the name? Who was
a poor bunch of kids from California. What was it called?
Is it The Sandlot? Probably The Sandlot.
No. The Perfect Game.
Perfect Game.
Ever seen that one? It's really good. Yeah, I think it's called The Perfect Game. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay. The other one that I think was an honorable mention and actually would belong on this list other than some of them would be For the Love of the Game, the Kevin Costner movie.
That's a good movie, not a great movie.
Not a great movie, a good movie. Of course, they had to have a romantic relationship. It wasn't all baseball. It had to be, you had to have him fall in love with Kelly Preston, which isn't tough to do.
Stratton Story, that's a good one. That's an old one.
Stratton Story is good, though. The movie with Ronald Reagan where he plays Grover Cleveland Alexander is good.
Yeah, that was a pretty good movie, actually. The Perfect Game is 2009. I don't think I ever saw it.
Yeah, it's actually worth seeing. It's pretty good. It's definitely worth. I think it's on Netflix.
It's on Amazon. Yeah, it's
the one that was really bad was that Tom Selleck one. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Baseball.
Mr. Baseball.
Mr. Baseball, Mr. 3000 with
Bernie Mac
was terrible.
It was terrible.
It was terrible.
Yeah. It was, oh my gosh. And I'm going to throw my honorable mention in. If we could just throw all-time television, baseball, just clips or anything involving this, and this is not a movie, but Baseball Bugs is by far the best Bugs Bunny of all time.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, anybody who plays baseball still references that.
Last thing, here's the rule about baseball movies: never make a baseball movie that has the name Mr. at the beginning of it, because Mr. Baseball, Mr. 3000. If you remember Mr. Destiny with Jim Belushi, where it's he drops a fly ball in Little League and it changes the course of his life. I mean, it's just brutality. It's horrible. And the worst one could be The Fan with Wesley Snipes.
The Fan was awful.
The San Francisco fan, right? Like he was. Oh my gosh! Yeah, I was thinking about that one.
The stalker fan played by Robert De Niro. So Robert De Niro goes from one of the better baseball movies in Bang the Drum Silly to a horrific one.
He's got it on both ends.
Yeah. Okay, let's start before everybody turns off the show.
Yeah, before everyone tunes out. That's a good idea. All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
What's today's date?
Today is the 17th of July.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, July 17th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello, and there's only 7 weeks until the opening of training camp.
I'm Russ Cohen. I'm not Russian Summer. And I'm wearing a shirt from the Kimberly Coffee Foundation to benefit meningitis, raising awareness. Very good.
Very nice, very nice. Adam Eklund, you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday in the afternoons, and we go all year long. So, I'm playing hurt a little bit today, but we're going to get through this. I got a little bit of a stomach bug, so I run out of the room at any point. It's
okay.
Sorry to share, but I don't feel the greatest today, so I'm okay. I'll be all right. And let's see, the big news today. Well, someone did point out, obviously we have Peugeot is signed for 3 years and $9.3 million. It's pretty good.
That's a fair deal.
Yeah, I think it's, because I wrote an article today about how this contract might affect other RFA situations out there. And Peugeot has been in the league for, he's played in parts of, I think it's 4 seasons, but he's played in the league, beginning to end, 2 years in Ottawa. He scored 19 goals 2 years ago, 12 goals last year, had 8 in the playoffs. Russ knows because he got him a lot against the Rangers. And he's a pretty effective defensive forward. So a 3-year deal at around $3 million for somebody who scored almost 20 goals. And at the end of this deal, he's an RFA. He's not a UFA. That makes a lot of sense. And what I wrote,
player.
Yeah, and what I wrote today is that the Leafs with Connor Brown right now, he's a similar player. Actually, has less experience than Peugeot. So the Leafs probably can slot Connor Brown in a little less than $3 million on a multi-year deal.
Yeah, and I'm a Peugeot fan. Like I've always been a Peugeot fan. I know he has his ups and downs, but I just think that I really like his game. I think he's one of those players that seems like he's just got a lot of raw skill, and eventually that does rise. I think, once the speed of the game, once you can get your skill to match the speed of the game, which he's doing, you can have great success. It's funny. He reminds me of of Billy Leno. I want to throw that out there, just like in a weird way. Just do they have similar? I'm a huge Leno fan too, and I know Sabres fans
until he hit Buffalo
aren't. But yeah, before that I was a huge Leno fan. So in a similar way, tons of raw skill. So I like this. I think it's a good move. Brian Campbell has retired.
Yeah.
And interesting. I mean, Brian Campbell, I think, had some opportunities to play, but I guess he really only wanted to play.
It was probably Chicago or I'm done.
Chicago or nowhere. Yeah, at this point. But he's it's interesting, and so we're kind of starting to see some defensemen, because also Cody Franzen, who's been rumored to a lot of places and a lot of different things, now looks like he might get a PTO with Chicago. And,
this is, I mean, we're in that sort of gray area right now where some veterans are hoping for that 1 year, $1 million deal, which seems to be, a lot of veteran guys got that deal 1 year.
Yeah, I'm still hoping for that.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I'm holding out for that one. But R.J. Umberger over the weekend got the PTO for Dallas, and that makes a little bit of sense because
no, it doesn't. Hold on, let's
stop that one.
Here's the thing. I get that he is probably finally feeling like he's recovered from the hip surgery. We watched him when he was recovered from the hip surgery, and I like him as a person, and I like his physicality, and I think he still probably has decent hands. He's too slow. He's far too slow.
And I'm not. I said what I was saying was it makes sense in the sense that he played for Hitchcock.
No, it still doesn't make sense.
Well,
this is what Hitchcock is thinking.
Hitchcock giving him a chance. Hitchcock does this.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? But if this
I think it's okay to give him a chance.
It's a roll of the dice.
This is part of what makes Hitchcock Hitchcock. This is what part of why players want to play for him. He gave it. Look, I mean, the best example I can think of is Scotty Upshaw. I did the same thing for, right? And he ended up playing for a couple of years, in a similar situation. So, I mean, I cannot see. I'm with you, Russ. I can't see R.J. Umberger having any ability to play in the NHL anymore. But who knows? I mean, maybe he sees something that we don't. But maybe he was so hurt. But he was not just hurt. He was really down on himself all the time. It was a lot of stuff. Like, when you talked to him back in Philly, he was like, "I'm done." He would basically say he was done. Like that was the kind of impression I got. So. I don't know.
Here's my thinking. So let's say it comes down to R.J. Umberger or Jason Dickinson, who's 22 years old and is getting ready to break out. Because Ken Hitchcock is sort of stuck in his ways, and he is. Let's be real about that. When in St. Louis, he definitely was. It's possible he could rather bring on a guy like Umberger than explore someone like Dickinson, who's got a lot of offensive upside. Because you know what? I trust Umberger, and I know he knows my game. And it's like, that hurts young players. It does.
Well, but I mean, we're talking about a team here with the moves that they've made is a win now team. They add Bishop. They
win now with young players, Mike.
But look what they've added. They added Bishop. They added on defense. They added a veteran in Mark Mathot on defense. They didn't add youngsters.
But the thing is, look. Pittsburgh Penguins don't win now without Jake Gensel. He's a young player.
I'm not arguing that point, but I'm just saying what Dallas did is they brought in Radulov, they brought in Martin Hanzal, they brought in Mathot, they brought in veterans. So that's what and so do I think that Umberger should make the team over a 21 or 22-year-old kid who has more speed and more? And no, I don't think that. But I think Hitchcock is thinking I would trust Umberger on a fourth line more than I would trust a 21-year-old kid who could make a mistake.
That's wrong. That's my point.
It's wrong, but that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe he's bringing RJ in. Sometimes you bring in, see how he works with the players, and you can offer him some kind of position, like maybe as a coach or as a nice thing. That can also play into things too.
It's possible.
I mean, this is RJ. This is Hitchcock doing a favor for RJ Umberger, which is fine. I think I like the fact that still exists in the NHL, because that doesn't always. People are.
I don't, because again, I see a 22-year-old that won't get that offer now, or won't get called up now because that guy's in camp.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, but speaking of new players, the Flyers have signed Nolan Patrick to an entry-level contract.
Let's get into that for a sec, because I don't want to bury the lead on that, because there's a lot of on the radio in Philly. They've already started making commercials for Nolan Patrick, which I think is ridiculous because he's not a lock to make the team, and just because he gets signed to an ELC, he's not a lock to make the team. There's a lot of things. Like here's the kinds of questions that I'm being asked, and this is why I think it's worthy of bringing up. Like someone said, well, who's going to beat him out for a spot? And my answer is, it's not about who's going to beat him out for a spot. Is he ready for a spot? Like that's a whole different thing, because he's better than, let's say, Scott Lawton in the next year or two. We all know that. But it's about this year, and it's about, do you want to rush a kid? And again, if someone's going to say, well, there's nothing that makes it any sense for him going back, Mike and I talked about it off air. We said the same thing about Mitch Marner. Send him back. He could play in everything. He could play in the World Juniors. He can go for a Memorial Cup. Same thing for Patrick. There's always sense to send him back. Even though he's a 100-point guy, it doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's about just repetitions, being successful, playing a certain amount of games, and playing in every situation. And unless he could do that on the Flyers, it's probably not worth it. So that's why I don't think he's a lock. I think you have to wait and see.
And there's enough depth with the Flyers up the middle that they can survive for a year without Nolan Patrick. I mean, you have Giroux, you have you can play with Filppula either on the wing or at center. You have Lettieri, you have Couturier, Vecchione. I mean, you've got enough guys to not have to roll the dice on a guy who might not be ready. And the guy who I used as the example with Patrick was Morgan Riley, because Morgan Riley missed most of the draft year with a torn ACL, and as Patrick missed most of the year with his stomach problem, with the stomach muscle problem. It makes more sense developmentally. If he goes to training camp and he impresses, makes the team, great. Do not rush him. Maybe you give him 5 or 6 games. You see what he's like. You give him a taste of what the NHL is like. But maybe you don't. But in the end, send him back to the WHL. Let him dominate there. Let him play in the World Junior. And then next year you got a 19-year-old kid who knows what the NHL is about and is more prepared.
I don't know. I mean, these are always tough calls. I think with 99% of the players, what you're saying is right. When a guy has 102 points in 70 games or whatever in the WHL, and you're going to send him back there, you do risk a chance.
Mitch Marner. I mean, Mitch Marner had
it worked out for Marner, but the Leafs were definitely further back than the Flyers are. Like the Flyers and the Leafs thinking was, we're not going to be good until we stink another year and try to get
It wasn't all that, Ack. It was also. I mean, I wrote about this on the weekend. The Leafs have adopted the over-ripening Detroit developmental model. They kept William Nylander in the SHL for a half a year and in the AHL for a year. They sent Marner to junior. The only player that they advanced was Matthews, because you couldn't hold him back because he was so good. But everybody else, they have allowed to play more in the AHL or in the CHL or in Europe. And that's good developmentally. I don't think that Nolan Patrick is hurt if they decide we want him to build on, to build strength, to get more experience in the WHL and some international experience in the World Junior. That there's no harm.
I mean, he has the perfect kind of for what you would like to see. Like we talked about Marner, he should be in the should have been in the AHL, and it's the same kind of situation, right?
If the AHL was an option, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We wouldn't be having this discussion at all, right? And I think. And one thing I will say is Hextall is incredibly conservative, I find. And if there is, I do think that, like Russ, what you're saying, I think is correct. That you shouldn't call him a lock at all. And I think that Flyers fans should know that there's a good chance Hextall is thinking exactly like Russ is thinking, and that's the basic, and that's the truth. When he sits there and says that, a lot of people say, "Oh, he's just saying that." I don't think he's just saying it. I think that's legitimate. I do think sometimes people just say things, but Hex, he doesn't. And he'll fight that. There was a lot of pressure before. You don't have like an Ed Snyder here who wants to see the new shiny toy playing right away. Which is definitely was a thing with Philadelphia for many years, and that Flyers fans, that's a plus or minus depending on how you look at it. Like I know Flyers fans do, like that's what they wanted. That's what you wanted. You want to put the best players on the ice all the time, and then the people who really want to develop players can say some players have gotten hurt by that. So it's all it all depends on how mature he is as a player. And I think that, like for example, Couturier, when he came in, no one really expected him necessarily to jump right into the team, but the maturity level he had was obvious. There was something you could see right away, right? I mean, that was the thing that we all.
But he also had a specific role. They brought him in to be a defensive guy. It's easier to do that with no offense pressure whatsoever. If you bring in Nolan Patrick, there will be offensive pressure no matter what.
There will be pressure, right? And he'll be playing with the skilled players for sure. He'll be with the top players. But, you could argue that Couturier's career was hurt a little bit by this. I mean, it's hard to, you never know.
I never thought he was going to be a massive scorer. I thought those Q numbers were inflated, and I think people got a little crazy.
Yeah, but people have definitely been hard on him for. I mean, he has offensive ability. The fact is, he is so smart, and was the son of a coach, which is obvious. That was obvious right off the bat. You know, certain things are obvious. You know, Couturier, there was almost like no question about it. It was just like, okay, he's ready. You know, what we don't know is until Patrick gets in there, we really see how he reacts to this whole situation. You know, will he be relieved at this whole draft? Because I think the last year has been incredibly stressful for him. You know,
Oh, absolutely.
I think more so than a lot of other top draft picks. You know, like he's been hurt. He's been questioned over and over again. There was this Nico versus Nolan thing after he was basically for like 3 years was the guy, right? And Nolan thought from the time he was like 13 years old, basically he's gonna be the guy. And now suddenly he isn't, and he was second overall. You know, which is, and I think that he's got to be feeling a lot of relief about the fact that he just has an NHL team now. But yeah, will there be a letdown from all the stress and all the craziness? It's possible. Will there be pressure in Philly? Sure, there always is pressure, right? And there was pressure to keep Marner in Toronto. You know, that was a big deal, as you remember, Mike, very clearly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think the Leafs would have hesitated if Marner had showed he wasn't ready to send him back to London for another year. I mean, it was all based on the fact that, you know, around this time last year at the developmental camp, you know, him battling.
They sent him down for 1 year, right? Like they had.
Right. They said he went to the rookie tournament.
Right.
He was clearly not ready to play against adults. They sent him back right away. There was no question.
Right.
The next year, you know, he went to the rookie development camp and he's battling in the corner with Austin Matthews, who's a foot taller than him. And I'm like, okay, everybody's saying, you know, not to say he's ready there, but he then showed in the preseason that he could hang with the big guys, and he could avoid the contact. So, you know, he earned his way. But if he had showed that he wasn't ready yet, like Sam Reinhart did his first year with Buffalo, at 9 games they sent him back to the WHL. It didn't harm him. I think in a way it helped him because he had a good rookie year for the Sabres.
Yeah, as an example, like Couturier had 96 points also in 58 games, right? So though you look at those numbers and you say, okay, so the Flyers threw him in there. He did have mainly a defensive role, but he ended up with 27 points. Okay, but then the next year he had 15 points. So the next year it definitely took a toll on him until the year after when all of a sudden things sort of probably settled for him in his mind. And then now this is the Couturier you see where you're getting about 35, 40 points. You're not getting anything more. Patrick is a better offensive player than that, but we don't know what's going to happen his first year based on who he's playing with and how everything's going to shake out. Is he going to get top power play time? Like, he's not going to get those things, right? So that's where you have to look at it and say, is it worth it?
And honestly,
who was Patrick's line mate? Like in the W, was there a guy that benefited from him? Usually the guy,
okay,
right?
I know who it is.
Sorry for throwing that at you like all of a sudden, but I'm just thinking like who on the Flyers is there somebody on the Flyers in a similar style of player that can
Hold on.
I mean, I think that, you know, you've seen a lot. I haven't necessarily, you know, been a fan of the Giroux-Simmons combo. Always, I think at times it's okay, but I guess the question is who's the winger that's going to play with him, that's going to score points. I mean, is it Voracek? You know, is it basically you have Voracek and Simmons? I think it's how.
Yeah, but you're not going to put Voracek on the third line. You're probably not going to put him on the second line. That's the thing.
I think Patrick will. I don't know who. So who's the second line center for the Flyers?
It'll be Filippola.
I don't think so. I think he'll be the third line center. I think,
it'll be Giroux 1, Couturier 2.
No, it'll be Couturier. Actually, Filippola will be 4. Actually, in my mind, it'll be
Laterra 3.
I think somebody's obviously playing the wing here, but I think that, you know. So I don't know. I mean, you got a lot of centers you're talking about.
I think Filippola is going to play the wing. He played mostly wing with. I mean, he can play center, and they might do that.
Really, Laterra's for Fippola's wing, you know, with Laterra probably, or with Couturier. But I think that you know, Patrick has to be your second or first line center. That's what you're thinking, right? Because that's the guy that's drafted that high.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean he's going to be that in the first season.
Like you know, Austin Matthews wasn't the top center for Toronto for a while too. So you know, he was on the third, fourth line as well. But that was
a matchup thing more than anything else. They didn't want him playing head to head against Bergeron or Eichel, like just out of the you know, like the half of the season. He didn't match up against John Tavares or Steven Stamkos. They wanted him to not match up against those guys. They wanted, say, Kadri to match up against them, and then have Matthews playing against second, third line matchups. That's what I want.
And that to me is going to be the interesting thing to see because, you know, I mean, you can like with Austin Matthews. I remember talking to somebody, and you know, they said, "Oh, he's a third line center," and this is when the Toronto came to Philly early on, and the person said, "Well, you know, it doesn't really matter what you want to call it. If Austin Matthews is out there, we're going to be checking him. Like we're going to put somebody on against him. So you can say he's third line, second line, whatever you want to say. He's their best offensive player. So we're going to have our best defensive player against them when he's on the road. So,
on the road, sure.
And that's how it's going to play out, you know, in a lot of these situations. But I don't. The question is, I think what could depend a lot for Patrick on whether he stays or goes is going to be if he has immediate chemistry with somebody or not. You know, like that can play into it. You know, that definitely helped Matthews this year. You know, obviously with Nylander right off the bat. If he has that chemistry, you know, like he doesn't have that definitive thing right off the top, you know.
Well, I mean, I would say it would be smart to put a guy like Simmons with him, but then, you know, you're moving him from where maybe the coach really wants him.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that also, you know, you're going to see. I think you're going to see a good bounce back year from Giroux as well. I don't think that's. I would expect that.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Jeremy Roenick certainly doesn't think so.
Well, I don't know what Jeremy Roenick knows, but
well, he said that Giroux lets everybody get in his head.
I don't know. I mean, I think Giroux just plays hurt. Honestly, that's really what I think. I mean, and I think that last year he was hurt all year, and I think he's healthy now, and that's going to be the major difference. I mean,
well, I honestly looked at, as an objective opinion. I honestly looked at the Flyers lineup right now as currently constituted and see a non-playoff team. So, I mean, to me, that would lean towards sending Nolan Patrick back because you got a lot of transition here. I think you could put a Scott Lawton at fourth line. You've got, I think, average goaltending in Elliott and Neuwirth. You know, you've got young defensemen learning to play in the NHL. You've got some really good young forwards and some established guys, but I don't think enough of them to contend with the other teams in the division. I don't see the benefit in exposing Nolan Patrick to that unless they think he's ready. And I right now I can't see how they would think that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw this out to you, Mike. I think it's funny. I think the Flyers have anything but average goaltending. I think they either have great goaltending or terrible goaltending.
Well, I'd lean toward terrible.
I think not. No, I think that because Elliott and Neuwirth are both goalies that have shown that they're either really good or not good at all. So in my opinion, there is no average goaltending in Philly. That's the one thing that there isn't.
Well, I'm taking the cumulative here, Act.
Yeah,
they can be great for 20 games and crappy for 20 games, and in the middle,
you know, half the Flyers are above average or whatever. You know.
All right, so yeah, two of the guys that Patrick had a lot of success with, because last year you can't really go with Jace Howerluck, who's Florida's guy. He's a bit of a rough and tumble guy who has some offensive ability, and John Quenneville. John Quenneville is also a guy that is sort of in that mold too, where he's got some offensive ability, but he's also a pretty rough guy playing against too. So
I put some points up with some kind of not to say like super skilled players, right? Like these are, I mean, they're
maybe you'd put up some points at Braden Shen. Oh wait a second, he got traded. Sorry.
No, but this is sort of to me like you know, that sounds like, you know, a good match for like a Simmons player. You know, Simmons I think is it gets his goals from working really hard and does create a lot of opportunities and has some serious skill along the boards, but is not what you would call a super skilled player. You know, like Voracek's a much more skilled player than Simmons, but
I don't think you could put Voracek with a rookie of any kind. I just don't think that's fair to the rookie because half the time you don't know what Voracek's going to do because he doesn't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, I agree. But maybe this is the guy. Like, you know, Voracek and Giroux are it's like a star-crossed thing, you know, where you have these two players who play really well together half the time, and then half the time don't play well together at all. So it's hard to understand. But the Flyers are a team that if I was to like list the 2 or 3 most difficult teams to say their playoff teams are not, the Flyers are one of them. Like they're definitely in that group. I mean, they are not. There's no way you can sit and say that they're not a playoff team at all, and just based on the assumption of, you know, the fact that they have 2 goalies who could be terrible but could be great. And I know that's what most people are going off of. Mason, we talked about before, Mason was the reason the Flyers made the playoffs 2 years ago. Was a lot, like Russ, you put perfectly, most of the good things that happened to the Flyers over the last couple of years have been because of Mason. But also, there's a certain, Mason did bring a certain attitude to the team that I think is Elliott's going to be better, a better suit, better fit for these guys. And perhaps they won't be quite so up and down. Like the roller coaster might not be so drastic.
Here's the quote from Roenick, and I don't agree with him on this. So the reason why, and he says he loves Claude Giroux, he says he's a stud. So he sort of gives you the Trump analysis where he butters you up at the beginning, and then he steps on you. So here's what he says. The reason why Claude Giroux doesn't get success is because he lets everything get into his mind and he looks for other things to blame it on.
No.
Claude Giroux can play his game, and he can play it at a high, hard level. He's just got to get back in the inside of the game, start attacking the game, and not worrying about what the media or the fans are saying about Claude Giroux, period. I never get the sense he cares.
I'm sorry, JR, but have you ever met Claude Giroux? I mean, to sit there and say Claude Giroux blames anybody for anything, have you ever heard Claude Giroux blame anyone but himself? Like, he is completely the opposite of that. I mean, there are plenty of players in that locker room, I would say, sure, but no, I mean, it's like that's the most crazy statement about Claude. I mean, that's like really just looking at the statistics and trying to come up with a story that doesn't exist.
Yeah, he's not around the player, and I think unfortunately, unless you're around the player and you hear these post-game comments and see him all the time, and he doesn't blame anybody. Now, after that, he still says something about wearing the C on the chest, and he says it in a complimentary way, but it's like he butters him up, then he kills him on something that doesn't even exist.
Claude Giroux was made the captain too early. There's no question about that. That's for sure. They should have given it to Chemo Team in that year, and they would have been fine.
It was a marketing thing. It was.
It wasn't, and he wanted it too. Like, he did go to them and say,
he did. But look, just because your kids want something, you don't give it to them. They didn't have to give it to him.
But he's not the way. When I say he wanted it, it wasn't like he was a jerk about it. He was, because Claude Giroux is anything but a jerk about anything. Like, he's not. I mean, if anything, he is too humble for his own good at times, and he doesn't, I mean, but there's not the way Roenick's describing him is like, that's crazy.
It is, and that's why I thought it was an odd comment.
Giroux, like, that has nothing to do. I mean, Giroux's issues have not been. His issues have been the fact that he plays hurt and will not take time, like take a month off to get better, but because he feels the pressure to play and he wants to be a part of his team. He doesn't want to let his team down for sure, but he's not. But even when he's playing hurt, the guy who says all these excuses never uses them.
No, he never does.
And you go to him, and I've talked to him on and off.
He's never even. I got to tell you something. He is never even not interviewed because he was in the trainer's room. He's not even that guy.
Yeah, and I've said to him off the record, looked him straight in the eye and said, "Okay, we're just talking here. I know you're hurt. I saw you get hurt. There's no way you came back this quickly from that injury. You're not playing like your normal game." And he won't respond to it. And he won't say, even off the record, he won't say, "Yeah, I know, but I got to play with it." He's like, "I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah. I'm good. And then after the season, we hear all the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it's people are really unfair. I mean, it's amazing that the amount of people who come up to me, I'm sure you too, Russ, and say the Flyers should trade Claude Giroux.
I know.
It's like, it's all over the place, and it's insane. It really is.
Let's get off the Flyer page for a second, because there's some stuff that came up on the weekend about the Islanders that I thought was pretty interesting. First, the whole building situation, Russ, you were clued in.
Yeah, so I wasn't there or anything, but I go on a radio station, WLIE, every Sunday night, and they had some people around the action because it's on the island, and so they had a little get together. You can call it a little rally at the Coliseum. And I think the only reason they did this was so lawmakers could sort of gauge what the interest still is in the Islanders, right? And because they're talking about building at Belmont, and they're talking about maybe expanding the seats at the Coliseum, even though Gary Bettman has said he's dead set against it. But they're still talking about it, right? And so a couple of interesting things came out. The first one was, this really just seems like, again, like living on Long Island, it was always corrupt, and it just seems like this is just a way to pacify the Long Island fan that says we want the Islanders back. So they do this. They have a game in the preseason. They did get a game there this year, and that's that, right? This is like them saying, look, we've explored this for you. As far as the Belmont thing, I always thought the Citi Field thing was better But there are those chop shops, and they're leveled now. If you watch a Met game, that part's gone. But I guess the new Coliseum, or whatever you would call it, whatever the arena would be called, if you had it out there, goes onto the same land that the World's Fair is on. And apparently you can't put anything else there. Like, and that goes back to 1964. Like, I was literally a year old when the World's Fair happened, right? And my whole life we saw that globe. I've taken pictures by the globe. They've upkept the globe, right? But World's Fairs don't exist anymore, right? Pre-internet World's Fairs were great. Post-internet, there's no point, because you could just, Apple showed, you don't need a World's Fair. You just need a camera and some people online to watch what you're doing.
Come on, Russ. We saw it destroyed in Men in Black, so we can see it destroyed in real life.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, so there's some sort of weird zoning thing with the World's Fair that's going to keep an arena out of there in the short term. So it's really Belmont or what the hell. Like, and the thing is, it's gotten to the point where people believe that the Islanders are going to get kicked out of Barclays this year. They're not going to get kicked out. Like Barclays said, look, we'll go year to year with you, but Barclays does want to see a resolution at some point because they make more money on concerts, but they're not kicking the Islanders out. What gets to me is, other than the Arizona Coyotes, I've never seen an organization sort of get kicked around the last 4 or 5, 6 years, not really having a place to play because there's always this dark cloud over them. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know when it ends. I mean, and hopefully it does end. I mean, I honestly think that the best solution would be to just build another arena where Uniondale is, and just take, that's a big parking lot, take another part of the parking lot, build it over there, and then tear down Uniondale and
but they just
renovated.
Yeah, they just renovated.
I know. I didn't think that was a good idea to do that. But I'm just saying that I think that in general this would have been the best idea.
Yes, in general, I agree with you. Yeah.
I mean, because that's where Islanders fans have always shown up, and they've never had ticket problems. They've never had problems selling tickets. They've been successful for many years. They've been solid.
I mean, they did look at.
They did towards the very end, yes.
In the last 4 years, with the exception of the last year, which a lot of fans want to bring that up as far as a footmark or footnote as to attendance, that's unfair because people knew the team was leaving. They did show up a lot more the last year than they did the few years before that.
Yeah.
Now the other thing that popped up on the weekend, and we can debate.
The second part, hold on, Mike, is John Tavares. Like, so none of this gets resolved. This is going to go the same way the Stamkos thing went, where Stamkos is going to entertain offers. Tavares will entertain offers in free agency and maybe give the Islanders last shot. But the closer it gets, the way the salary cap has really fallen for the New York Rangers, if they see John Tavares is dangled out there with no Rick Nash on the books, they'll have plenty of money to offer John Tavares if he still wants to live on Long Island.
Well, okay, Larry Brooks reported on Sunday. Elliot Friedman put in his 30 thoughts, the connection between Tavares and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, the thing is, I'm really skeptical of that. I'm not disputing their sources, but I'm skeptical of Tampa Bay as a destination for Tavares. I know the connection between Stamkos and Tavares, but if you're going to, if you're Tampa and you're going to sign Tavares, you're talking buying out Ryan Callahan. That's not a problem. You're talking trading Nikita Kucherov because you won't be able to afford him. You're probably talking moving somebody else out because you're talking about probably 10 to 11 million as an unrestricted free agent. Yeah. He's not going to take he's not going to take the Steven Stamkos sweetheart deal of $8.5 million because they have no Florida state tax. He's still going to want to be paid up at the level of Kane, Taves, Price, maybe not as high as McDavid, but that's what it's going to take. So I'm a little skeptical that Tampa Bay would do that.
Me too.
Yeah, I am too. I have no doubt the Rangers would go hard after Tavares.
Yeah, I mean, I think they honestly, without talking about it, I think that's part of the reason they've cleared off all this money.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's complete. I mean, it's not going to be hard, like you said, to get him to go there.
And the same goes with Toronto in terms of Tavares. They would have to clear out Kadri, and they'd probably have to clear out one of Nylander or Marner to be able to afford Tavares. And I don't see them doing that. So that's why as much as I was like very pro Stamkos and thinking that they had a chance to sign him, I'm very anti Tavares in terms of that organization spending that kind of money to bring him in.
Yeah. it's really hard to say. You know, like I can't help but think that at the end of the day, somehow this gets done. But this is one of the shakiest of all. I mean, Stamkos I thought was shaky last year. This is now shakier than that was, right?
Yeah,
so
it's definitely shakier.
And of any superstar, like we have not seen a superstar leave when they could become a UFA before.
But the thing is that everything that we thought the Islanders were going to have to do to get Tavares locked up, they've done absolutely none of it. They swapped an ineffective Ryan Strome for Jordan Eberle. I think Eberle's an upgrade, but you're paying $3.5 million more. But they didn't add. All they did was move out Travis Hamonic for draft picks. Right. And then get rid of Grabowski's contract and gave up a first-round pick to do that. So they have a lot more money under the cap. The problem is they haven't spent it, and all the big free agents are gone. And unless they go after Duchene or somebody else who's rumored to be traded, they really haven't upgraded. So what basis does Tavares have to stay in New York? They really haven't upgraded that team.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. So I'll get into a little bit of Duchene rumors too while we're here.
Sure.
It's funny because there's a lot of people out there that are saying that I think this is what happens with the hockey rumor world right now. Like this, everybody goes off to their cottages and stops like paying attention, and and that's fine. And I wish I could do the same, but I can't. Because damn it, we've got to provide you guys with rumors all year long, and we want to because things have not stopped. Like Duchene, this is the situation is not like Duchene is suddenly happy and everybody's okay in Colorado. In fact, it's worse than ever. So, to be honest, what's happening now is really leading to a bunch of different things. So, the latest that I heard two things. One I posted on Friday, and you guys may have talked about on the air a little bit as I couldn't do the show on Friday, but with the idea of the Rangers picking up Anisimov from Chicago, and then Chicago turning around and trading for Matt Duchene with one of their defensemen, and that's what and they've got some. Obviously, they would get a defenseman. I heard from Chicago in the Anisimov deal too. There's a lot of different moving parts to this, but the thought was, okay, maybe this is the magic part of this whole formula that no one knows about. Maybe this is why Sakic is holding out. Maybe this is why Sakic knows that he's got a really good deal that he can get a player that is a super high quality player out of Chicago. I mean, maybe it's Seabrook or something like that. Who knows? But it's something we were talking about, some kind of player out of Chicago that he really likes enough to have not moved Duchene for these good offers that he's gotten so far. But in order for Chicago to do this, they have to make another move first. And there are people I've talked to, quite a few people that believe that is definitely a scenario that is out there.
It's not crazy. I mean, something else could happen, but it just seems like with Colorado not being in a rush that it stalled everything.
Yeah, it has stalled right now, but it would either Sakic is just clueless, which I don't think any of us really think Sakic is this clueless, or
he just doesn't have pressure from an owner telling him you got to get this done.
Yeah, there's that too, but there's definitely pressure enough. And I mean, I wrote about that. I mean, you would think it'd be pressure enough that
the pressure he's getting right now is from Pat Brisson and from Matt Duchene himself, because he wants the situation resolved.
And it's not on the team. Like I've actually talked to players on the team too that really want it resolved. Other players that are going to stay there that just don't want this happening.
I can see that.
Right.
Yeah, then there's nothing against Matt Duchene. They'll all say like, he handled it as well as he could have, but they don't want to be answering these questions come training camp, and they don't want to be going through those stuff. They last year was such a disaster. They really want to focus on just hockey, and they want to get their team going. And they know things have to change. I mean, you can't not change a team that was so epically terrible, as they were. And right now, they've done nothing except for signing a couple of signings here and there, which have really not amounted to anything. So
and they have what, 32 guys under contract. They have a bunch of RFAs that they haven't signed yet, and Their year last year, they were trying to win, and they finished, I think it was 20 points under what the Leafs finished at the previous year.
And they ended up losing out from the lottery in a big way, right? So they got nothing. They got no better.
It was a tough year for them, and it's going to be a tough year again this year, no matter what trade they make, really. But the thing is, if you at least want to say you're moving forward, then you should do this deal with somebody.
And I have a feeling, and this is not based on anything that I've been told, but just as an observer of the scene right now, I have a feeling that the Duchene, sort of sideshow in terms of him not being traded is holding up other deals from happening. I mean, for example, I know that, there have been some reports, Larry Brooks reported it last week about Tyler Bozak, and there's also been stuff about James Van Riemsdyk. And, Duchene can play the wing, he can play center, and everybody who's looking for a scoring center or a scoring winger is saying Matt Duchene. And once Matt Duchene is moved, then plan B options like maybe Van Riemsdyk or Bozak come to the forefront. But until Duchene is resolved, that can't get resolved. And right now, Toronto is stuck at 49 contracts, probably at 50 when they sign Connor Brown, and with no cap room. So they can't do anything, even assign players to ATOs, because there's no openings to sign players to contracts.
Correct. And that's a big, that's a big issue. And as as this plays out, I think we will see Duchene dealt. And I also the other team also that I wrote about yesterday was Montreal, again trying to get interested. Montreal also is in a similar situation where they don't have the right match to make this deal, so they've got to get something to make it. And I've heard that as well. And so Sakic is going a little bit off these three-way deals, and he's waiting on some of those. Those are hard things to wait on as a GM because they require a lot that you can't control.
Yeah.
To happen. And if that doesn't happen, then you're sitting back where, you have definitive deals that can be made right now that he's not making because he thinks he has better possibilities with maybe Montreal picking up some defenseman from somewhere that he wants and then moving him on to them.
I would like an explanation, and we can explore this over the summer, why three-way deals are so easy to make in the NBA when it comes to money, but it's not easy in the NHL. When it comes to money and players and prospects, it's very, very difficult. You very rarely see it in the NHL, but you see it every day in the NBA where a third team or a fourth team are included.
I've asked people this before, and I'm not exactly asked the question, but I've asked, why is it we don't see more of these bigger NBA type trades, not necessarily connected with three-way trades, but the one thing I've heard from people over and over again is the parity in the NHL is so much different than that of the NBA. And that you have all these teams that are closer together, and it's hard to make trades with teams that you could actually help that team be better than you if you're not careful. Where in the NBA, the teams are sort of defined, they're very defined right now. They've never been more defined in the NBA than they are right now. Basically, you have two teams at the top and then everybody else, right? So, but yeah, in the NHL, it's hard.
Let me tell you what's going on Twitter though right now, because Darren Dreger, and I don't think he did this on purpose. He posted a picture of Andrew Ladd, who's got this Sturgeon charity tournament going on. Sturgeon is a fish,
Sturgeon is a fish, yes.
A lot of Jewish people eat them, and they're horrible. Like it's a bony, but they're massively old fish too. Like they're maybe the oldest fish on earth, right? So I don't know if this tournament is to catch them or not. It looks like he's releasing one, but the point is, now Islander fans are tagging this with Matt Duchene, saying, "Hey, fishing is great on Long Island," and now this has turned into this on Twitter today, and really? It's funny because look, I've gone out to Long Island Sound and fished. I'm not a fisherman. It is unbelievable, but this just shows you what's going on out there, like how fans of other teams really want this guy.
Russ, what's next? Are they gonna link a video of Billy Joel's Downeaster Alexa? I mean, what's going on?
I'm just saying, but this is funny that this is going on.
There are monsters out there in the canyon, Mike. That song. I love that song, by the way. That's one of my favorite Billy Joel songs.
It's a little bit of a downer, but I get it.
Yeah, it is, and I get but.
Yeah, but you like Springsteen. Come on.
I don't like many Billy Joel songs, but I like that one. So Montreal, another team that is. We have a couple teams that are pretty desperate in Montreal and the Islanders, and what's going to happen with them is going to be kind of the thing to watch over the next couple of weeks. And I don't think that we're going to get into August. I really think that Duchene will be moved before that. And I wouldn't be shocked if it goes that far, because really right now the rookie camps have all ended, and there's a lot of talk going on right now because people have seen what they have. They have a sense of these rookies and who are maybe ready, who are not ready. So if you've got a chance to pull somebody up or not. or if you're going to really need to fill spots, and a lot of these players like the Cody Franzens of the world are waiting around for those rookies to see how they work.
Yeah, but here's the argument. Okay, so let's say Duchene, right? Let's say Duchene and the Islanders talk. The Islanders have to give him Matt Barzal. Barzal is either going to play this year, or he's definitely going to play next year. And the point is, Duchene's on a limited year deal. What's he got? 2 more years, and then he's a free agent. A team like the Islanders can't guarantee that Matt Duchene's going to re-sign with them. Neither could any other team, and that's going to also complicate this kind of a trade.
But the Islanders have not held back because of that before. This is one thing the Islanders have a tendency to trust that people, once they get there, will like it there.
Yeah,
this is something that they've always done, and this is a team that
it worked with Letty and Boychuk. It did.
It worked with those guys. It's kind of legendary. Like, who was remember the Russian defenseman they had for a long time who came over there and did not want to be there at all, and then
yeah.
Ended up signing a bunch of contracts there.
The offensive defenseman. What's his name?
Wisnowski.
Yeah. I mean, and that he wasn't the first. Like there were other players that went through that same kind of thing and that didn't want to play there. And then once they got there, they realized it's a great place to play and it's a great fan base. Yeah. And I think that for the Islanders, they have to take that chance. They have to go and they're at the point where they have to take that shot. They have to trade him and even that young defenseman, even though they like him.
No, I mean, Barzal could be better than Matt Duchene. That's the problem. Yeah. And if you don't get Matt Duchene re-signed, then that trade looks horrible in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you really just have to look at Barzal from a really intense, scrutiny and say to yourself, is he actually going to be better than Matt Duchene? That's, and that's such a hard thing to do right now. There's no guarantee you'll be right on the answer. So, but I think that they have to at some point that they're going to have to do this and they're going to have to take the chance that Duchene's going to be okay there, or else they're just simply not going to do enough to keep Tavares there, which is going.
Then it's a center for center trade, and it probably would satisfy Colorado because they'd have Barzal for a lot of years, but it could backfire on the Islanders too. And you know how Garth is; he doesn't like to think about the backfiring part.
Well,
as long as they can get a defenseman. I mean, the other thing is I keep expecting Boston to get in on this more. But every time it looks like Boston is going to get into Duchene because Boston has the defensive depth to maybe make the trade. It seems like Boston is really more interested in Landeskog. Like Landeskog, Boston they would do more for Landeskog for whatever reason. That's the player they seem to want. So, and Landeskog,
but Colorado wants one guy.
Yeah,
that's Brandon Carlo because he's from Colorado.
That could get it done. And at some point here, you've seen Carlo probably more now. Like I'm sure he was, around. I don't know if he was part of the rookie camp or not. Probably not. But
no.
But I'm sure. But you've seen him enough now that at some point you have to look everybody in the eye and say the Bruins they need scoring really badly. And as much as they, Strachey's not doing it anymore. He's not going to do it. They've lost Lucic. They haven't. They're getting. Obviously, they've got some good young players there, but. At some point, I could see Boston saying fine.
Here's the problem: Boston still has plenty of great defensemen that are 1 year, 2 year, 3 years away. Warsofsky is now in Vegas, so that was like one of their extra guys with some offensive talent. He's gone. Grzelcyk's still around. They've never really given him a shot. But if you get rid of Carlo, there isn't a lot of depth to slide into the NHL lineup defensively. You have to play Grzelcyk at that point. I might be okay doing that depending on the pairings, but Chara is going to get hurt for a certain amount of games, and their depth on defense isn't great.
Yeah, I mean, the only significant ad they made was Paul Postma.
Right.
So,
or you go out and you get a Cody Franzen for a year and you just wait. That's the other thing you do, and you just
do that.
That I think is what teams need to start thinking more in terms of, okay.
Well, they might be thinking about that as a last resort. Like, unfortunately, Cody Franz and Andrei Markov, these are now last resort plans. These are like, instead of plan A or B, that's like an E for teams.
Yeah.
It's funny. They're both, and Markov, again, I did finally hear that the Leafs had talked to him. I don't know how far it went, but I heard that they talked to him. So you expected them to because it made all the sense in the world, but.
Yeah, but let's just say this. A lot of hoops would have to be jumped through for the Leafs to be able to have the room contract-wise and money-wise to sign Markov. I mean,
unless he went cheap, unless he went like 1 year, a couple $1 million.
Even then, Russ. I mean, they could sign him for a couple $1 million for a year, but they're at 49 contracts with Connor Brown unsigned. It's like it's not exactly easy to dump contracts right now.
Yeah.
So you know.
No, it isn't. It isn't. No, it's not at all. It's really tough to dump contracts right now. So anyway, yep, I think that's about all we were good for today. I really appreciate you guys jumping on, and thanks so much to everybody, and thanks to everybody last week.
Happy World Emoji Day. It's a thing. I didn't make it up.
All right, Happy World Emoji Day. There's something else today that I saw. It's like Happy Third Pet Day or something like that. Anyway, yeah, it's always something. So anyway, if you're down in Ocean State tonight, I will be at the Hooters concert. If you're down in Ocean State, New Jersey, so stop by and say hi. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. We will talk to you